Okay, so it's been a while. I think 2 weeks, or maybe no, it was 2 weeks since the last recording, right?
I think so.
Okay. Have you had any thoughts since then? I have some stuff, but you can go first if you have anything.
Oh, not really. I just was thinking about the how to make the 3-minute room fragmented, but it's more about the design issue than well, not exactly design issue. It's well, I just had to figure out some kind of a good uh, algorithm to actually split the world a bit and still keep a root and all that. But it's more like trial and error later on.
Wait, by splitting the world, what exactly do you mean by that? Like
I
in what
mean,
kind of sense?
if the maps that you walk into in the fog world, if they are like fragmented, as I say, like pieces missing and things like that.
Okay. Um, I think last time we already talked a bit about terrain generation or like just random generation of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, like, I mean, there's always two different ways of going about it, which are sort of the opposites. The one is selecting the ranges that are passable, and the other one is selecting the ranges that are not passable. And I'm not sure which one would be more suitable for this. I mean, if we go for the idea of having certain kinds of outpost villages that are designated, then it seems to me that it would make more sense to like have an algorithm that can draw a certain kind of path from the central village to the outpost village, instead of having some kind of gigantic open area that only has certain parts blocked off or something like that.
Yeah, that would make more sense.
So then we would have to look at algorithms that try to mutate or generate terrain along a line.
Yeah,
So
or
is
like
that what
make
we were
corridors.
right? So is that what we were thinking about, or something else? Because I'm
Yeah,
still not.
it was that, but more detailed, like how would it actually generate a part of the corridor? Like, it doesn't have to be some tight space. It can be pretty open to walk, but only leads to one direction, of course. But well, as I said, it's just so much trial and error when doing generation stuff like that.
I'm not sure if piecing together a corridor pieces is actually the best idea for this. I was thinking more in the sense of like if you think of the Worms games where you have modifiable terrain, where it just cuts out pieces of the map basically, but in 2D. So we could do the same kind of thing, but top down.
Yeah, that's one way to do it.
I mean, that would allow us to do much more organic looking things than just matching together corridor pieces as it's done
Well,
usually.
I wasn't thinking about corridor spaces like, say, in Persona. I was meant more like, uh, well, if the outpost is like multiple maps away, then one of those maps is one corridor room, and it would be like start out as a plane that's about you can go anywhere. Then just make, well, as you say, take parts from it, or other way around. First make the road that should be followed, like wide one, and then take parts from that.
So wait, you're thinking of segmenting up the actual connection road between the villages itself too into multiple maps.
Well, it's one idea. It makes making worlds like mapped easier, but since the world is changing, it doesn't really matter here so much.
Hmm. I was thinking more of not having different, like in Rune Factory you have very like static rooms traditionally, and I'm guessing it's done to preserve resources and stuff and make it easier on like the limited hardware. But I don't really see much point in doing that for our game. So it seems much more ideal for us to have a like only sort of two different kinds of regions in the game entirely. So the one would be a village, and the other one would be the fog world outside of it. And then when you go anywhere, you enter the fog world, and it loads that particular map into it, and it's just one contiguous area that you can traverse until you reach the next village.
Well, that could work, but you still have to split the parts it actually loads. It can't be held in the entire thing all the time.
I'm not sure about that, actually. Because if we make the terrain generation just vector-based, so the outline is just a vector, that would take extremely little memory, and you could generate the particular regions of the map as you go and traverse it. So it's not necessarily the case that it requires too many resources to put the entire map in memory at once.
Well, there are all the assets that need to be.
Sure, but I don't think there will be too many different assets that you need to unload and upload again. Right?
Well, I suppose.
I mean, it's always...
It has to be tested.
Sure, of course. I mean, if you can have fucking games like Metal Gear Solid 5 running on a modern computer, I think we have quite a bit of leeway in that.
Well, I'm pretty sure those things also do they only load the immediate area of the player.
Sure, but I mean, the amount of assets that they still need to represent any kind of immediate area at the moment is so ludicrously high that I'm pretty sure we won't really have to worry about that too much.
Well, I hope you're right.
Either way, yeah, we need some tests, but it could be a fun idea to explore some kind of random mutation algorithm at some point. If you want to do that, then go for it.
Yeah, sure.
Did you have anything else?
Oh, not really right now.
No, okay. So, I was thinking, well, what I just did before we started this podcast is trying to figure out the problem we have with things just locking up or playing crashing after a couple of times of restarting, or in the case of Windows, just not shutting down properly. I'm still trying to debug that. It's a very peculiar kind of issue. So what I've noticed so far is that, like, it starts up fine. What it does is it boots up the GL context, it displays it, and it starts the rendering thread, and it runs that, and that all just goes fine. Problem starts appearing once you shut everything down, and it goes fine until it tries to acquire the context again in the original thread where it's shutting down, and so the render thread shuts down fine, it releases the context, but as soon as you try to acquire the context, it just hangs forever. And I don't understand why. So I'm trying to see what could be the issue. So at first I thought maybe the problem is that at the point where you're trying to reacquire the context, the Q application is no longer running, because the finalization of the widget happens outside of that. But even if I run the code within the application, it doesn't seem to change anything, so that's probably just a fool's errand there. Still, this is just very strange. I have no idea what's going on, and even looking into the Qt source code doesn't really tell me anything at all. The function definition for acquiring the context is very small. And yeah, I really just don't know what's going on there. But we should get that sorted out soon, hopefully. I hope I can find a way.
If you can't find a way, it's usually a good idea to ask on the Qt forums.
No, the Qt forums are fucking horrible. I don't think they're gonna... Yes. They're horrible. I don't think they're gonna have much of an idea about any of this, given that it's so convoluted. But yes, also usually, like, Qt people are C++ people, and they don't understand the concept of restarting your application while it's still running. That's a Lisp thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so that's what I've been working on. In terms of ideas, I was only thinking like I should get back to the actual storage of maps and stuff. Because previously, I think we talked about this before, but probably not on the podcast. So the problem was about how to represent a map, both in terms of storage and when you load it. So the problem is you have certain elements in a map that you know are always static, and you have other elements that you know can move around, or can be removed or added to the map dynamically. And then the problem is, how do we save that? How do we get a sort of a save file going? How do we get dynamic map elements going and all that kind of stuff?
Have you had any thoughts on that? Sorry.
Well, particularly, the one of the bigger issues was that, like, you would probably want to be able to. Okay, hold on. Let me try to explain this differently. So one of the problems is you probably want to have, if you write a map file by hand, you're writing some sort of code, and what you probably want to do is be able to refer to different map files to include them. So, for example, if you want to like write a map for I don't know, the farm or something, you want to include the base farm layout, and then you want to add objects onto that. And the problem was that once you actually load that into the scene, your scene doesn't make any difference between what is static and what is dynamic anymore. So once you save it, you don't really know how to distinguish that, and you would just dump the entire thing back into a complete save file, even though you do have some stuff that it's already in the included part. So my thought on that was to have some kind of representation of a map file in itself that is separate from the scene, and then you would be able to load different map objects into the same scene at once, and then you would be able to retain that information of what is static and what is dynamic.
Yeah, sounds like it would make sense, since they are separate.
Right. And I mean, it's still kind of a headache to me how to encode all this information and retain it in memory, especially the references between the maps, so that the system knows exactly what you really want to save when you tell it to save. Because those things are like, if you think of the idea of having, like, in certain games, when you design a map in specific, you have certain elements that you know where to place, but they won't actually be saved into a save file that the user creates, because they just reset once you load, and that's fine. But a system has to somehow know that difference, and the question is, how do we encode that so that you don't have to tell it every time? And I'm still not quite sure about how to do that. But otherwise, I think just having this kind of separate encoding of, or a separate indirection level of having a world represented in the scene should get us ahead on that problem. But yeah, that's about that. Otherwise, I haven't really been able to think about much of Trial recently, to be honest. I've been busy getting Maiden to run and finishing off that and fleshing it out and adding stupid crap like Cards Against Humanity.
I noticed the Twitter post you made.
Right. So, yes. What I also would like to do is do some more artwork, really. I'll have to get on that pretty soon. Maybe I'll do that today, actually. But yeah, it would be nice if I could get some more, get a sort of a concept art so that we can actually talk about what it will look like instead of trying to constantly form it into words. What we're thinking about at the moment.
Yeah, and we really need to get the feel as well.
Yes. So yeah, it would be nice if you could be there for a stream of that, so we can sort of collaborate on the ideas as it goes on. Other than that, anything else that comes to mind? We're only 50 minutes in.
What? 15? Okay. Well, mostly it's just been that I really want to do some prototyping with the map generation and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually tried to install the. I think, yeah, I messaged you about the particle.
Oh yes,
But
yeah. I already
yeah,
pushed a fix yesterday.
yeah, but so I couldn't do anything actually
Right.
with this time. But oh well.
I mean, you don't really need the full engine to like make random maps anyway.
I know, but I really wanted particle at least.
Okay, sure. I mean,
I I wasn't going to install Emacs and everything else like on their computer, since particle is just nice and I can
right.
just put it somewhere.
That's true. Um. Okay, so I'm trying to scratch my brain for any kind of lost topic that we could talk about. Fill some more time. Yes. Yeah. So Luminaire is coming up in 2 months, you said.
Yeah, 8 weeks and some days.
Ah, god damn it. That's way too soon. I don't know if
I
we
know.
can. Ah, Lord. Yeah.
But I'm sure we can manage something.
I mean, I still will. Even if we're not really ready to make a game or anything, I would still like to use that weekend just to power through and get some work done.
Yeah.
But yes, it would be great if we could at least get to a stage where we can show something of some kind of instead of just working on engine code all the time. I mean, I think I've fixed the problem with the model loading a while ago, so we should be able to get like the demo we had before running again pretty easily, so we can build on that. I don't suppose you actually ever went ahead and tested your own Octree implementation, did you?
No, since you made your own, so I kind of lost interest.
Nah. But I really want to compare the two. I don't know which one is better.
Uh,
I mean, mine is very much like the bare minimum, so it would be harder to extend it for more advanced things like reorganizing the tree or anything like that. Okay, so that's still an issue that's open, really.
how do I share events that I create on my calendar?
That's very off topic, but fine. You go to edit event, and then on the side there should be add guests, and then you just type the email address.
Sorry, I meant to like this, but I just needed to get the Ludum Dare set on my calendar.
Yes. Okay. Mostly done with maiden work for the moment, so I think I'm ready to return to trial and all that good stuff. But I'm supposed to be studying as well for the time being, so I won't have all too much resource to spend on it. Still enough to get some work done, and I'm glad I can return to it. So, other than that, in terms of one question that I had, which I don't think we talked about before, was what kind of farming tools should we have? I mean, in Rune Factory and Harvest Moon, what you have is you have a hoe to like hoe the field, then you have a hammer to get like resources, you have a sickle to get rid of the crops, you have what else do you have? Brushes for your animals, and what else? you have quite a few different kinds of tools, and I was wondering if it's really necessary to have that many different kinds of tools available.
Well, at the moment, I think we should just have some multi-tool that does everything and then expand from that if we do split it.
The problem with having a multi-tool is the question of how to map it out into inputs. Because, like, from the scheme that we discussed before, we wanted to have, like, one button that just uses the item we currently have in the hands. And then if it's a multi-tool, the question is what really happens, right?
Well, that's where you split it. And, like, if the target has only one thing that can happen to it, then multi-tool is just fine, but if it has two, then you can split the other tool from it.
So wait, if it has two targets, you have two different buttons, or what exactly happens?
The multi-tool is just for debugging until we get some proper set. Yeah, that's what I mean, like for design. Like then, until there are no more special tools that we need to split from it, then we can switch it to something like generic, like a shovel.
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure. Look, the problem for me seems to be like if you, like, say we have the idea of a field, right? So you have certain fields that are that have plants on them, and few one of those plants are actually already fully grown. And then the question becomes, what is the exact action that happens as you go along the field? So, for example, you might want to just water all the fields, regardless of whether they have any plants in them, whether they're fully grown already, or whatever. So, if you have a multi-tool, what exactly happens would change way too quickly as you go over the field, because different kinds of actions would seem the most appropriate for the given field, even though you want to exactly do the same thing for all of them.
Well, that was my point. And you take the water can functionality out of the multi-tool, like in the actual game design.
I'm not sure what exactly you mean by that. So, like,
we create a tool that is a watering can.
And
that's it.
But then what's the point of the multi-tool? I don't understand.
So we know that if we have to create a separate tool for something.
Right.
So that's about it. My point is that the multi-tool wouldn't be in the final product.
Oh, okay. Now I'm getting what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Alright. Sure, I guess. I'm not sure if that's the best way to go about it, though. I mean, certain things like, if I just think back to things that I never use, no, I mean, different. God, what am I talking about? It's more just, if we go by things that cannot overlap. So, for example, if you wanna, like, things like the watering can and the hammer cannot overlap, because it doesn't make sense to water a rock, right? But combining the both into one also doesn't really make sense, because what kind of tool can both water stuff and smash a rock, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure if going from a multi-tool basis is even a good idea to begin with.
Well, I suppose. I never really liked the whole idea that you had to have a hammer to do one thing and a hoe to do another. And
sure, but I think this goes into the area of, like, the program figuring out what you really mean, and oftentimes program trying to guess what you want ends up much more frustrating than if you have to just be explicit and tell it what you want.
yeah, true.
What I'm less sure about is whether we really need such a huge assortment of items, or whether we can actually just eliminate certain items wholesale because they become redundant. So, for example, one of the things I pretty much never use in Rune Factory is the sickle. What it's supposed to be doing is, I think, if you use a sickle on an item that's on a crop, it either destroys it, or if it's fully grown, it gives you higher level seeds for it. And destroying it seems pointless to me. I mean, you could use a hammer for that, right?
Yeah.
Or you could just use the hoe again, and that would just tow the field. So that functionality is obsolete, in my opinion. And then the other one is getting higher level crops seems kind of pointless because certain, like, you have a random chance that as you pick up the produce, you also get higher level seeds from it. So the sickle is entirely pointless.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I mean, you could entirely easily just remove that.
Yeah.
And I mean, the question becomes like, it's the same thing for the hammer. Do you really need a separate tool just to smash rocks? Couldn't you also just use like your weapon or something like that, or just your bare fists or whatever?
That would be actually pretty great.
I mean, that's another thing, right? You could do all of these farming things with your bare hands. It would just be way less efficient, right?
Yeah, and Rune Factory has this weird thing where all the weapon types had to have a tool to them.
That do they really? All of them?
Oh, is there a bow? If there is, that doesn't.
No, there isn't any bows. Yeah.
Well, the sickle is like the sword, the short one. And if I remember right, the hoe is some larger sword, and the hammer is an axe.
I don't think the spears do anything.
That's true.
Right. So, anyway, I think it would also be worth considering if we actually can like drop the tools entirely and only have them be like a sort of an upgrade. So that if you want to do different things like gathering loads of items, you clean out your inventory by just removing all the tools, and you can still do all your work tasks just more slowly or something like that.
Or just have all the tools available next to the field itself, instead of carrying them everywhere.
Right, but that I think that decision goes back to whether you want to allow any kind of field work outside of your farm, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we decided on that, did we?
Well, the mist is always changing, so there's not much point of having fields in there.
Sure, but I mean, you could have certain kinds of plants that you have to discover in the mist. You would still have to be able to dig them up or get their fruit or whatever.
But you can do that by hand.
Yes, exactly. So, which is why it then becomes questionable whether you shouldn't be able to do everything by hand to begin with.
Yeah, why not?
Right. Okay. One problem that leads me to is like the question of animation. Right now what we have is just sprite based. And as we add actions and things you can do, that becomes way too inefficient, right? Because there will be way too many different kinds of animations, especially if we consider adding new kinds of people to the game or new kinds of skins and all that. So getting a working animation system off the ground is also a pretty important task. I'm just not sure how to get it going, especially because you also need to be able to design these animations, and I don't think there's any software out there that can really do it, or at least in a format that we can read. There's animation stuff for 3D models, of course, but that's not really what we need.
Yeah, and there are the 2D skeleton animation things, but I'm not sure what output they have.
They usually output just animation files, so straight up just sprite sheets or movie files. I haven't seen any that produce any kind of different format that you could read, because I don't think there's any kind of standard format for 2D animation sprite-based ones, like part sprite-based ones. So we would have to invent our own thing for that, which in turn means we have to create an editor for it, which is going to be a big fucking task.
Well, if we can use some tool to make the sprite sheets, then we don't actually have to make our editor draw them.
But we still need an editor to animate it, right? That's the problem. Because we need to be able to coordinate all the pieces. Like, right now I already split up the Colleen thing into multiple parts. Like, there's a part for the head, chest, pelvis, upper lower legs, foot, and upper lower arms and the hands. So we still need to have a way to animate that easily. And since we have to invent our own format for that, we need to also write the editor for it. I mean, I can create the sprite sheet myself in my Paint or whatever easily enough, but the animation, we need to have a way to visually represent that. We can't really do that like writing the text that controls the animations directly.
Have you looked into different formats? Like, if there is one somewhere out there?
No, I haven't, but I would be very surprised if there was one. Like, the format is the least problem, the smallest problem we have. Like, really, the problem is having an editor that allows us to see what's going on. I mean, it's also a question of whether the format really corresponds with the engine we have right now. For animation purposes, I don't see any reason not to use Flare for it, since it already has all the kinds of things you need for it. It has like coordination of different parts and different kinds of tweens and all that timing stuff that you need for it. So really, we need something that works with that kind of platform, and that's something different. I don't see any purpose in making trying to accommodate for a third-party format.
Well, I gave a quick look, and there seems to be some XML format using Spriter.
Oh, great.
Let's see how much it costs.
I don't want to buy anything.
Yeah.
Also, Spriter sounds more like a fucking sprite sheet editing thing rather than a partial animation system like Spine.
Actually, it is like Spine.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah. They just call it Spriter for some reason.
Wait, is that the thing I used before? I know I used the thing, but I don't remember what it was called. Let me see. Yes, I did use Spriter before. Well then. I didn't quite like it, though.
Okay.
But yes, I guess I could look into that. I would be much more comfortable having my own editor for it, though.
Yeah, it would be a good idea to make one eventually. QTools, here we come.
Well, I don't think that would be part of QTools.
Well, wouldn't it be using it?
It would be using it, of course. I mean, it's Qt, so everything's using QTools.
But I mean, like, to make the layouts and everything like that.
Oh, sure, yeah. Yes. Okay, so yeah, that's one thing that's been on my mind for a long time, but I really don't know when I'm gonna get to it, because there's more high-value targets before that. I mean, we can make do without custom animations for actions for a bit. It's just one thing that we definitely need sometime in the future.
Yeah.
For now, I'm gonna see if I can get this bug figured out in trial and get some more artwork done. And it would be great if you could like look into terrain generation.
Yeah. I'll try that. I done it a few times, but they've always been really simple ones.
Sure. But now we have some different kinds of ideas.
Yeah.
Alright, good. And we got half an hour in, so that's great. Alright, hopefully we can get some stuff done. And yeah, another podcast soon. There's some success stories, maybe. Perhaps. Right, until then, see ya.